June 16th, 2026. I'm OG Nerd, and tonight I need to tell you about a woman whose name we may never know. Sometime in the past week in the city of Herat in western Afghanistan, a community gathered to protest. Their grievances were not abstract. Dozens of women and girls had just been arrested. Not for theft, not for violence, not for anything that harmed another person, but because the Taliban morality police decided their clothing violated a dress code. The protest was peaceful. The Taliban's response was not. A woman is dead. A child is dead. Shot by their own government's forces for objecting to the arrest of women whose only offense was what they were wearing. I want to tell you why this story almost didn't make it onto anyone's radar, and why that almost is happening in itself part of the story. Afghanistan has been a major U.S. news story since the chaotic withdrawal in 2021. Once American troops left, much of American media coverage left with them. The Taliban's daily grinding erosion of women's rights, banning girls from schools past sixth grade, banning women from most jobs, now even restricting their clothing down to the inch and enforcing it with bullets, has continued for nearly 5 years, largely out of the spotlight. This week, something different happened. The entire UN Security Council, the United States, Russia, France, the United Kingdom, every single rotating member, 15 countries that disagree on nearly everything else happening in the world right now, unanimously agreed on one thing: the Taliban must stop. That kind of unanimity, should tell you something. When countries that cannot agree on Ukraine, that cannot agree on the Middle East, that cannot agree on trade policy, when those same countries all look at what is happening to Afghanistan women and say in one voice, "This must end," that is not a small thing. That is the world recognizing a moral emergency. But I want to push past the diplomatic language for a moment because I think it can obscure the human reality underneath of it. Somewhere in Herat tonight, there is a family grieving a mother, a sister, a daughter. There is a child who will never grow up, killed not in some distant battlefield, but in the act of standing up for the basic dignity of women in their own community. There are dozens of other women still detained, still facing interrogation, still facing a system that has decided their bodies are subject to state control. This is gender apartheid. This is not a phrase I use lightly. It's the precise legal term that human rights organizations now use to describe a system that has methodically, deliberately, and violently stripped half a population of its basic rights to education, to work, to movement, to expression, and now, evidently, to the clothes on their own body. From my perspective, I believe that human rights are not negotiable based on geography or culture or convenience. A woman in Herat has the same inherent right to dignity, safety, and self-determination as a woman in Madrid or Mexico City or right here in the United States. The moment we start treating human rights as something that varies based on which government happens to be in power, we've abandoned the entire principle. The UN resolution is a real and meaningful step, but resolutions do not stop bullets. They do not reopen schools. They do not bring back the woman and child killed in Herat this month. What stops those things is sustained international pressure, economic, diplomatic, humanitarian, applied constantly, not just in a single unanimous vote and then forgotten the next time a bigger headline comes along. I'm going to keep telling this story, not because I have a solution sitting in my pocket. I don't. But because the first step in solidarity is simply refusing to look away. The women of Afghanistan have not stopped fighting for their own freedom, even when the cost is their lives. The very least the rest of us could do is make sure the world keeps watching. To the women of Herat and to the women across Afghanistan, fighting for the right to simply exist freely, you are seen, you are not forgotten, and this story is not over. I'm OG Nerd, that's my take. Stay informed, stay sharp, stay nerdy, but most of all, stay woke. Join us for the conversation on OG Nerd After Dark Live on TikTok at 12:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you.